Yeah, he gave a presentation on sleep this afternoon. There was 10 in the room
Oh, nice.
with the two of us, so it was 8 other people. So it's managed to continue to survive. We were kind of thinking about, do we keep it going or not? So far so good.
People keep coming, huh? That's good.
Yeah, I think it's still working out.
You guys learn about sleep medicine in medical school, Kevin, or how did you get some extra learning on that?
Took it on myself, I think, to get some extra learning on that. And it's not really mentioned at all. I can think of it only being mentioned maybe half an hour discussion in
Yeah.
psychiatric in psych, as far
Oh
as
yeah,
they go through the sleep cycles and they go through basic sleep hygiene. But it's
sure.
not ever really considered much of something considered or asked about in any
Yeah.
earnest fashion.
Have you read this book? I read this is a good
Matthew
one.
Walker, is that?
Yeah, Why We Sleep, Matthew Walker. Yeah,
Yep.
good one. I read this one in a few months ago.
I also have that book. It's a great book. I think yeah, that one and the sleep solution. But there's probably about 10 books probably called that one. But yeah, Why We Sleep is a great book, I think. It's
Yeah.
just like
This is.
eating.
Go ahead.
Just I was gonna say, just like eating is something we do so many times throughout the day, throughout the years. Just like same thing for sleep. It's interesting that medical professionals don't study that major aspect of our living situation.
Definitely. This is an open forum. Do we have any new people, or anyone wants to speak up and tell us how they found out about the classes if you are new, or if this is only your first or second time? Yeah, maybe if there aren't a lot of questions too, you could always do a summary, Kevin, of what you talked about this afternoon, if nobody jumps in too soon. Maybe you're not prepared for that. You probably already
No,
did that.
I don't mind. I think I probably could have started a little bit more eloquently this afternoon, but um, it'll be a pretty easy lead-in question. But where do we get our energy from? Oftentimes, people mistakenly think that we get it from other sources. Some people think that they will eat for energy, and occasionally that's true if someone happens to be, you know, low in blood sugar. But that's actually a very rare situation, unless you have a diabetes situation known to you usually. Um, and so for most of us, the only place we get our energy from is sleep. We go to bed tired, wake up with more energy. And so then the next question that's usually asked is, how much sleep do we need? And does anyone know a simple answer to that one? It's enough, because it really is dependent on each person and on what you did during that day and what you've been doing over the weeks and how you've been eating that day. And so all these things factor into how much recovery time we need. And I tend to think of sleep as recovery time. It's when our body is almost in essence moving the other direction. During our living and waking times, we're using up the vital energy we have. We all have so much lifespan. Someone used to tell me that we all get 100 years, but some people try to cram it into 50. And so, depending on how you use your energy throughout the day, will then make your sleep requirement dependent on that. So, and there's things we can do to optimize our sleep to make it more efficient, and there's things we can do to reduce the amount of recovery time that we need. So when we eat a low fat whole food, plant-based diet, we're reducing the amount of toxins that we're putting into our body. So there's less cleaning that needs to be done, less repair and recovery. So our sleep time's reduced. We're supplying better quality nutrients as well. And so our sleep quality is enhanced. Anyway, it's usually a win-win and on both sides. When you make a sleep improvement, you get gains across the board health-wise. And when you make a sleep deterioration, you get deterioration across the board health-wise. Your fitness declines, your mental health declines, your cardiovascular health declines, et cetera, et cetera. But when we can improve sleep, which is something we all do 1/3 of our existence here, we really get some substantial gains. So I won't get too far into it, but anyway, that's a quick synopsis.
Thank you. I noticed that I needed, probably when I changed my diet and lifestyle over 10 years ago, I remember there was a period of time where I seemed to have a lot more energy and I didn't seem to need as much sleep. And so that I noticed that pretty profoundly. And then it kind of tempered out a little bit over time. And now I feel like I get about or need about the same amount of sleep as I did before. But I did notice that initially when I changed my diet, I had a lot more energy. I didn't feel like I needed to sleep as much.
Were you always so physically active, or have you increased your physical activity?
I actually decreased it since before I changed my diet. Before I changed my diet, I was much more physically active than I am now. And then I still exercise plenty and regularly, just not at the astronomical levels like I was before I changed my diet. So that's all part of my story. Is I got healthier when I changed the food, because I'd actually cut my exercise in half, but I changed the food, and that's what brought me my health. But I still exercise a lot, so just not crazy amounts like I was before.
We have a couple questions. Dave and Cherie, you had your hand up and then you brought it down, and then Nancy. So let's start with Dave and Cherie, and then we'll go to Nancy.
Sharina, I have been watching this new show on Netflix about the Blue Zones, and Dan Buettner, I think it is, and we've seen 3.5 of the 4. What I'm seeing is it emphasizes a lot of things and kind of the food, but it doesn't. It's like a quarter of the thing, and they eat a lot of oils and stuff like that. And I guess it doesn't seem very scientific to me. Well, we saw this, so we came to these conclusions. I'd like you guys' opinion on that, if you have one.
So
Sure, yeah. Oh yeah, go ahead, Charlie.
you can go ahead first, Scott.
Okay. Yeah, so I've read both of Dan Buettner's books, the original Blue Zone one, and then the more updated one. And then I just finished watching those 4 episodes yesterday as well. And it's definitely not scientific, but I think you can draw kind of relationships, conclusions based on that. And I think what's important is, it's 95% plant-based. I think that's all what they all have in common. And they all eat lots of beans and legumes, and they do use some oil. And I think Charlie always brings up a good point, so I won't steal his thunder, but he always talks about how, if you live that way from birth, that was the way you grew up, eating that way and living that lifestyle, you tend to not get chronic diseases. But now here in America, we've done so much damage to our bodies with the poor lifestyle. And when people have chronic diseases, it takes much more strict, more scientific changes to actually reverse chronic disease, as opposed to just trying to it's much easier to keep yourself healthy than it is to reverse diseases once you have them.
Yeah, Scott, I'm really, it does my heart good to hear you take those words and repeat them, because I stole them from somebody. I don't know who they were, but we learn from our mentors, and if it sounds good and it makes sense and we can help other people with those words, that's great. And so, Dan Buettner, in this series, he goes over pretty much the lifestyle issues, the issues that bring us health or can create disease. He doesn't focus near the attention on the food issue. He deals a lot with social issues and movement and other things. Those actually are pretty important, as it turns out, also. And, you know, these classes, we focus a lot more of our attention on just helping people transition their food choices. But ideally, we would have classes that would be hitting all those points. And so when he's created Blue Zone projects throughout the United States, I don't know if he has any throughout the rest of the world, but he attempts to convince communities to do something different. And it involves all those areas. So, you know, it's as Scott eloquently said, if you're living that life from early on and you have a few animal products in your life, 5%, 10% of the diet, you're probably going to be fine as far as your individual health. We have some additional issues that we're dealing with on this planet. And the additional issues are two more. One of them is the damage to our environment by the food choices that we make. If we use animals for our livestock, I've been focusing more attention with Kevin Rogers, our fourth-year medical student, on the damage to the land, to the air, to the water, the destruction of our environment by using this. And we should be focusing our attention in saving this environment. And I also like to emphasize the issues. Some people don't believe global warming is occurring, but that's another issue with me that I think the methane that's produced by raising livestock for our food source is contributing significantly to global warming and to the destruction of our environment. So that's one issue. The other issue is actually an issue that the animals have. They don't like to be raised in concentration camps. And if we give a little bit of thought as to the kind of foods we're eating, if we're continuing eat animals that are raised in concentration camps, we might choose to do something different. And so that's all I have to say for now.
Thank you. And if I can remember the answer, I'll say it to somebody else.
They can watch.
You guys.
They can watch this. Yes. Okay. Very
And
good.
our class next week is on our food choices and the environment. We're actually going to talk about the environment next week.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right, Nancy, and then Craig and Mary.
Yes, so I would love to get a full night's sleep, but I always have to get up in the middle of the night and use the bathroom. And I try not to drink anything after, like, say 4 p.m. or even earlier. And, you know, it makes me tired. And I don't know what to do about it. If there is anything I can do about it, I don't know.
So you get up and then it's hard for you to get back to sleep?
Sometimes it's hard. Sometimes I go right back to sleep, but you know, it's hit and miss.
Well, that's not unusual or abnormal to have to get up at night to urinate. So sounds like as long as you're avoiding the fluids after, like you said, after 4, make sure you're not drinking any caffeine even earlier in the day, because like even a cup of coffee or any caffeine you drink at noon, still about 25% of it's still in your system at midnight. So it's if you're avoiding that, that would be big, because that stimulates.
Well, I don't like coffee, and I'm not real crazy about tea either, so I never have that. Once in a while, if I'm driving in the evening because I'm tired, or sometimes even during the day, I will take a caffeine pill because I don't want to fall asleep at the wheel. But that's not very common.
So are you doing any screen time, like looking at your phone and
computer?
Computer. Okay, well, maybe Kevin, you could kind of take that lead in and talk a little bit about what you talked this afternoon about screen time and the effects of it and what might be done with that.
So certainly anytime we are getting light into our eyes and our brain processes that, we start to essentially downregulate certain hormones and upregulate other hormones. One of those ones that's popularly talked about is melatonin. And when we're getting particular light spectrums like blue and green spectrums, we are suppressing our own natural melatonin. And essentially, we're throwing off our natural circadian rhythm. And so, ideally, we would lead, and especially those of us who are sensitive to this and may have a need to maintain a certain rhythm so you can sleep throughout the night. And as Scott said, though, waking up one time, even two times, isn't considered really too abnormal just to urinate.
Okay. I didn't
Uh,
realize that. I thought that was, you have to sleep 7 or 8 hours, and if I have to get up in the middle of the night, it doesn't seem like I'm getting that. I mean, sometimes I go back to sleep. Sometimes I don't. Well, one thing, my tablet has a screen or whatever that's not blue in the blue thing. But a lot of times too, I will stay up cooking. I mean, I'll have my computer on, but I will be cooking stuff, and I can sometimes stay up pretty late because I'm not very fast at cooking. Thank goodness I'm retired. But yeah. Oh, and another thing too, I read somewhere where like taking a 30-minute nap can help. Does that sound reasonable? Like if you get tired in the daytime.
As long as it's not after about 3 p.m., it's okay to take a power nap as long as it's 30 minutes or less and before about 3 p.m.
Before 3, okay. I remember that sometimes around 4, I'm just like, oh, I'm just.
I'll share my screen real quick because I want to show you, just make sure anyone, since we're talking about sleep health, if anyone, let me get this. I want to show you the on the website. Go to the handouts from class. So if you go handouts, resources, handouts from classes, and then I have this the lifestyle medicine, which I'll go over this one, lifestyle handout, nutrition to sleep. When I do the class on lifestyle medicine later this year, I'll go over all of these. So this is the 1-page lifestyle, all the 6 pillars of lifestyle medicine, 1-page summary of each. And so I can go, that was the nutrition, there's the physical activity, stress reduction, social connections, avoiding risky substances, and then sleep health. So if you wanted to, I can enlarge it here. So it has all the tips, all the, let me go down to the last one. So right here it has all the sleep disruptors, tips for better sleep. This is from the American College of Lifestyle Medicine. So those are all available on the website. So you can check out to make sure you're doing good with your sleep hygiene, we call it. So doing all the things you should do to improve your overall sleep. I just wanted to show you that.
Well, I think it's going to help me to realize that it is okay to get up and use the bathroom in the middle of the night without, and still consider, if I go right back to sleep, I can consider myself having got enough sleep, because that, I guess that, worries me as much as anything. You know what I'm saying? It's just,
Yeah.
I think, oh, I'm not getting enough sleep. I only slept till 3 a.m. and then I got up and had to go to the bathroom. But I did go back to sleep, but I just figured that's, I only got, say 5 hours of sleep rather than my 7 or 8.
But then as long as you went back to sleep for another hour or two, you can still add those up. Those still count.
Well, one thing I did is I got a motion detector light so that I don't have to turn the light all the way on. And I think that helps a little bit to, kind of keep me more in the sleepy zone rather than the light getting me totally awake. But anyway, something that's done. Anyway.
Okay, Craig and Mary Ann. Mary Ellen. Maybe not.
It's like they disappeared.
Well, they're on the screen, but they're just not unmuted yet. So give them a couple more minutes. We can go on to the next question, then we'll come back. I think Mary Ellen has had problems sometimes with the focus and getting on. Okay, Edward.
A question just popped in my head. So brown rice is a whole food, right?
So this
Yes.
one we don't worry about. It's too maximum, it's too full. Can you change
Is
the
it
one?
best to rinse it?
Is it
So when
best
you
to
have-
rinse it?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I
Scott.
usually do. Yeah, so if you're doing any grain, usually they'll say, the directions will usually say rinse it before you, if you're cooking it, from, if it's not already cooked, yeah, if it's like, if you're buying it in bulk, especially if it's like that. Sometimes they'll say pre-washed or something, but I believe at least when I cook my groats, I always rinse them, and I'm
Okay.
not sure if my wife rinses the brown rice. Because it comes in a big bag, like a big bag of brown rice we get from Costco. I guess I don't know if my wife rinses that. I know when I do my oat groats that I buy in bulk, I rinse those. It says to, but
Okay, because I've heard that it gets a lot of the starch out. But I was thinking, isn't that like a good thing? Don't you want that starch?
I don't know that it gets the starch out. It gets
Right.
potentially arsenic out.
This
Uh,
is-
But
the-
are you
don't
being careful of where you're buying your rice from? Like,
means to
is it
times down.
a minimal amount of arsenic, like from California, or is it a more maximum amount? Like in the southern states?
I don't know. I just did it in bulk at Winco.
Can you hear it?
Yeah, so,
Yes.
yeah, Mary Ellen, I can hear
I
you
can't
now.
hear
Hold
any
on
of
1
you.
second. We can hear you. Hold on, we'll let you speak in a moment. So why don't you ask them, where's the rice from? And if it's not from California.
Scott, would you raise your hand if you can hear me?
We can
yeah, we can hear you, but just where you
We
have
can
somebody
hear you.
else.
I can't hear any of your speaking. Go ahead and
Oh,
pass me by. I'm going to restart. Oh, you can
Okay.
hear me.
yeah,
Hear yes.
go ahead.
Okay.
We'll come back to the rice issue in a moment.
I'm not
Go
sure
ahead.
why you are muted to me, Scott.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Mary Ellen.
Try again. Okay, so it looks like she is unmuted, but can't hear her. So log off. All right, let's go back to rice and we'll be back. So, Edward, do you have the concept about some rices have a high quantity of arsenic in them, depending on the soil they're grown in?
Yeah, I've heard you guys talk about that before.
So we're just reminding you.
Right.
You may hear it once or twice or three times, and it doesn't make much sense. But again, if you're eating brown rice and you're rinsing it, you're rinsing off kind of the outer coat. The outer coat of the brown rice is holding in the starch. I think that's more in the myth that you're getting
Okay.
rid of starch by rinsing it.
Okay, that makes sense.
Okay. If someone else has some input on rice that I'm unaware of, I'm more than willing to listen to input about that. And let's see. Is there anybody else? Mary Allen, can you hear us now? Yes or no? Because we can see you. We can see you. We can hear you. Yeah.
Okay.
Unmute. Let's see, I'm gonna try to unmute her here.
Okay.
Okay,
Shall
okay, go ahead, Trouty.
My grandmother used to rinse the rice 7 times. I don't know why that is, but she never would eat the rice without it being rinsed.
Well, someone must have told her that's the trick to eating healthy rice, and whether there was any science behind that, I have not seen anything like that. So
I'll
maybe
do it, and I don't know why, but that's the way I do it.
well, I guess it utilizes more water that way and resources. If you were living in Arizona or South, certain states where they have water restrictions because they don't have enough water, they'd probably prefer you only rinse it once as opposed to 7 times. But we don't have that problem in Oregon yet. So you can keep rinsing it if you enjoy that. But I don't know that there's any health benefit or any advantage to doing 7 rinses, other than it doesn't.
Do you need to rinse brown rice?
I don't know. I don't know if my wife rinses the brown rice or not, but if you want to rinse it once, I know we buy the rice from California because it has the least arsenic. So make sure you do that.
Yeah,
Susan.
okay.
Susan Mansky.
Mr. Mayor. I don't know whether this was discussed before, but Dr. Greger he's mentioned it a couple of times about the arsenic issue, that one good way is to increase the amount of water. Instead of 2 cups, put 5 cups of water, and then, you boil it the same amount of time, and then the arsenic supposedly leaches out, I guess, and then you empty the water and you eat the rice. That's his take on it.
Very good. Thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah.
But if you buy the rice from California, you probably don't have to do that. If you have young kids that you're worried about getting arsenic exposure, maybe you want to do that. If you're an older person like me, you probably say a little arsenic in your life is probably not going to alter the number of weeks or months you're on the planet. But whatever you're comfortable with is okay. Maybe that's why 7 times rinsing it, but I think you do have to cook it in order to get that out, as opposed to just putting it in water and rinsing it. I don't know for sure. Anybody? Interesting questions. We'll have to keep an open mind, and we'll keep reading about it, try to figure that out and talk about it the next time. Okay, Susan, you're done with the question? Then you can bring your hand down. Lisa, anything you want the group to know about, or what's going on in the world? Just curious.
Hi, sorry, I'm driving home right now, but the usual. I have a few people I'm meeting with this week for one-on-one health coaching, and I'm open to anyone else who wants to meet us. And then we've got a book club coming up at the end of the month to finish up talking about how not to die. And I'm going to be sending a survey out shortly to pick our last book of the year. And it's going to be a lot of fun. One of the books that I came across was about the Blue Zones, a new book that came out at the end of August, talking about the different cultures and lifestyles across the Blue Zones. And it's a partnership with National Geographic. So they've integrated a lot of really amazing and beautiful photographs from all of these cultures to highlight the culture. So I'm hoping people pick that book, but whatever we pick will be great.
Okay, did you see the recent Netflix series on 100-year-olds Blue Zone? Lisa, have you seen that series from Netflix, 100-year-old Blue Zone special? Guess you're You're out in the traffic, too much traffic in California there. Someone
Yes,
is
sorry,
asking,
say that one more time.
yeah, did you see the Netflix Blue Zone 100-year-old? It's called Blue Zone.
I didn't, but I've heard of it, and I think it's related to this book too.
Yeah. So I think it's about 3.5, 4 hours, something like that. A series, 4 different things. You may check into it sometime when, I know you have so much time on your hands, but anyway, don't worry too much. You already know what's in there. And if you get a chance, you may want to view it. Okay. Nancy, you have another question.
Well, it's not a question. It's just right before COVID, well, right at the time COVID was first coming out, Dr. Greger went down to Roseburg and gave a talk down there. And I guess Roseburg has started a Blue Zone program for I don't know who's sponsoring it or whatever, but anyway, I know people were, like going to the store and learning what to buy and things like that, which was
It's
kind of
still
interesting.
a Blue Zone project. And the reason Roseburg became a Blue Zone project a number of years ago is because of the classes, just like we're attending right at this moment. Only they were in-person classes before the pandemic hit. They were held every single week, sometimes twice a week, where we reviewed the same topics, had same discussions, and the Blue Zone project people came around and said, we like this. Are you as a community willing to put up some money to become one of our projects to improve your health? And they were ranked, Roseburg at that time was ranked about 30th out of 33 counties in overall health. So it was near the bottom of the barrel. And they were able to raise enough money to become a Blue Zone project. And it was taken over by an organization called Umpqua Community Vegetarian Education Group, or UC Veg, with a Dr. Beery, who I'm grateful took over these classes and felt they were important for all of her patients to take these classes. And so that's how it came about.
Just and then they were trying to do one, and then they tried to do one in Eugene too, right before the pandemic. They actually had a lecture out at Lane Community College. It was back in 2019, right before the pandemic. And I went to that. And it was actually Dan Buettner's brother that was there speaking on his behalf at that time. And I was pretty excited because they had a bunch of leadership from my medical group and a bunch of other medical groups, Chamber of Commerce. They had a whole bunch of leaders within Eugene, Springfield community that attended. And they were considering having Eugene be a Blue Zone project candidate. But then right after that, the pandemic hit, and so I never heard what became of it. I don't think we kind of just fell by the wayside as far as that, because I don't know what it had to do with our willingness to do it versus it was the pandemic. But yeah, that was pretty exciting at the time.
Well, I know in New York City, the new mayor is a whole food plant-based person, and he's like the hospitals now, the menu is whole food plant-based. You have to request having meat or something or other. So the default is just, what they'll just feed you without any question is just the whole foods plant-based. And I was listening to this gal, and she was saying they're trying to improve the meals in the schools too there. So they're doing something. And then
that's great.
Yeah, these are things that governments can do, I guess, because Eric Adams is getting some done. And I read, or maybe heard, in Britain, in fact, I talked to a guy from Britain, they have mandated decreased salt in their, like the fast foods and just kind of nationwide decreased salt. And it has significantly reduced their heart disease. So that's another thing governments can do that, I don't know that there's a big salt lobby, I don't think so. But sugar lobby is a whole nother story, which I think needs to be taken care of. But anyway, there's just some things. Oh, and did anybody see Nicholas Kristof's column not too long ago about the state of our healthcare system? And he didn't say anything, well, hardly anything about diet. So maybe Nick Kristof needs to be educated. So anyway.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Have a comment, a thought, suggestion?
Someone put in the chat about collagen supplements. I don't know of any good studies that have been done to show any benefit as far as randomized controlled trials and things. I think Dr. Greger has some videos on those, but kind of doesn't make sense anyway from a physiologic standpoint, because what we know about proteins is if collagen's a protein, and so say you are lacking collagen in your knees or some other joint or whatever, just by taking a supplement, it's not going to suddenly become collagen in your knees if you take a collagen supplement, because what happens when we swallow it and it goes down and our body breaks it down, our body actually it breaks the proteins down into their individual amino acids, and then it gets reassembled, but we can't choose what it gets reassembled to. Our body decides that. So that's why, when they do randomized placebo-controlled trials with lots of different supplements, including collagen, it hasn't really shown to be effective at all.
So Nancy, you have a question, thought?
Yeah, I have a question. Naturopaths, what exactly do they do? How reliable are they? I'm, somewhat skeptical about people who've told me they've gone to naturopaths about what they do, but anyway, I'm just wondering if anybody has some better information than what I haven't really looked up anything on it. So I'm just curious.
Yeah, they tend to, this is a large generalization, just like saying all doctors do things a certain way. That would be pretty big generalization, just like, Charlie and I are traditional allopathic medical providers, but obviously we do things a lot differently because we have emphasis on lifestyle medicine. So that's a big difference. But with what I know about naturopathic medicine, it tends to be, from just mostly my knowledge on it is, a little bit we learned in PA school, and I'm sure Charlie learned a little bit in medical school, and maybe Kevin could chime in on this too. What he learned in medical school is that it tends to be pretty what we call reductionist, just like allopathic medical school which is this disease, this mechanism, this supplement, this thing to try to fix a particular problem. And so it can tend to be pretty kind of really be sometimes disease mongering, like, oh, you have this problem, let's do all these labs, let's do all these vitamin levels, let's do all these things, and then let's try to, a lot of times they sell supplements at the clinics, and here you need these supplements, and let's fix this problem. So they kind of look at it more from a reductionist standpoint rather than holistic standpoint, and they kind of focus on, just like in traditional allopathic, we focus a lot on pharmaceuticals and procedures and surgeries. They focus on the reductionist, this problem, fix it with this thing, rather than kind of more lifestyle medicine, holistic prevention and treatment, treating the cause like we do with lifestyle medicine. But that's kind of where my knowledge on that kind of ends there.
Because it seems like people who've gone end up taking antibiotics because their gut's all messed up or something or other, and it just kind of seems weird from my knowledge. But anyway.
Yeah, they'll say like you have small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, so you'll have like, oh, you have a yeast infection in your intestines, so you need to take these antibiotics.
Candida is one that I keep coming across.
Right, and that's a common thing, and it's not. Yeah, that's kind of that, trying to find a problem and then fixing it with a drug or supplement or something, and it's not always that helpful.
And again, naturopathic physicians have survived for a reason. And probably one of the reasons is maybe the time that they give to their patients, the amount of length of time. And oftentimes patient satisfaction is based upon the fact that a person actually cares to listen to them. So if you get a very caring naturopathic physician versus a uncaring MD, DO, PA, nurse practitioner, you may be helped more by the person who actually shows genuine interest and care in your health. The one issue that I've had that I've heard from most of my patients who have been to naturopathic physicians has been that they've always kind of received a prescription that the practitioner has provided for them. In other words, they're charging them for a medication that they think they should use, and they're acting sort of like a pharmacy. And I think that can kind of influence a decision making as to what might be the best treatment. That's the only qualm I have about anyone who is promoting a product or selling a product. Be very careful about how you want to take their advice. That's just my thought process. I don't know. What do the med students have to say about this? Lisa and Kevin, have you had any experiences with naturopathic physicians, or your thoughts on this?
I've heard both. I've heard some people, like you said, get really good results, partially because of the relationship they've developed with their naturopath. I think there are some people in the class too who I've talked to that really got a lot out of that relationship, and even the medical advice from the naturopaths. I think it could be worth a try, and to see if you can get something out of it that you haven't been able to get from your regular physician. But like you said, Dr. Ross, I think it's good to have some skepticism and always question what you're told, whether it comes from a doctor or a naturopath or online.
Thanks, Lisa.
I second what Lisa said there, and what Dr. Ross said, and what Scott said as well. From my experience, naturopathic doctors get trained on some things that allopathic doctors don't get trained on, and at the same time, they do end up oftentimes being fairly reductionist, as Scott said. I think that is the key point there, is that whichever person you go to, if they're not addressing the underlying cause, then they're really just, whether they're giving you herbs and supplements or medical prescriptions, they need to be addressing the underlying cause. Otherwise, they're really not hitting the source of your issues.
Okay, Susan Mansky.
Well,
Yeah.
Gary wanted to say something.
I was just going to say, but you said it when there is some positive stuff too in naturopaths. I've had good experiences. It depends on the individual naturopath. And I was going to mention that thing about time, which is a very important thing. In the allopathic model, it seems like you make an appointment, and if you have 12 minutes with the doctor, you don't have time for nutritional. He doesn't have time to give you nutritional advice, which a naturopath they're not afraid to give you nutritional advice. And the other thing is, you can you won't get a heavy drug that's going to cause a lot of side effects. That's just the way it is. They'll do supplements. You're right, and it may or may not help you, but you won't get. I've had experiences with allopathic where the medicine was, it was worse than the disease, that kind of thing.
Me too.
So anyway, that's my opinion on that. So it could go either.
Thanks for sharing that. It is important to hear why people are going to naturopaths and why they still survive, just like chiropractors and DOs and MDs survive. There's a reason.
Yeah. And In the old days, from what I've read, there used to be more time with a doctor, and he would look at your skin color, and he would kind of like have more time to probe things. And now I just go to a doctor and they just want to shoo you out and take a bunch of tests, and instead of like, what I don't, what bothers me is, they don't look at, it seems to me, now maybe I'm wrong, that they can pick up a lot more in a very short time, but it seems to me that a longer period of time where you can kind of relax more instead of, you're there for a while, so you start relaxing more, and and then you see that, and I've gotten prescriptions, and they're not making any money on it. They just, they don't care. They're different. They're all different. Some of them don't seem to care if you buy anything from them. But I'm sorry for picking on you, but that's just been my experience.
Well, thanks for sharing that.
Thank you.
And I hope I didn't give the impression that I was anti all of a particular profession. It's more associated with selling products from the office. If they were kind of writing a prescription to have someone else make money off of it, I'd be good with that, actually, much better. But we're not anti-naturopath. I hope I didn't sound that way.
And there's all kinds of medicine. There's, we have functional medicine and preventative medicine, and there's allopathic, which is the more traditional. And then, there's and naturopathic medicine, there's homeopathy, there's Chinese medicine. There's a lot of different alternatives out there. And that's why a lot of doctors are going to, actually one of my colleagues is doing direct primary care now, because we feel like we're so tied to the computer, you don't get very much time with your patient, and there's so many check boxes you have to do on the computer to get through your patient visit. So it's because of the way the reimbursement is, you have to dot all these I's and cross all these T's just to make the clinic go, and then it takes away from your relationship with the patient. Sometimes you have to really be dedicated to try to maintain that in such a short period of time. So a lot of doctors are going to direct primary care, where they have maybe 500 patients instead of 2,000 or 3,000 patients, and then they can spend more time with their patients and get to know them better.
Got hit on the cause of my burnout from emergency medicine. It was the electronic medical record, and I insisted that I have a scribe who would type in the information. When the hospital said, no, we're not doing that anymore, you have to type in your own note. That was the time when I said, someone else needs to be doing this kind of work. And then I found lifestyle medicine, and I had renewed enthusiasm again. So it is an important thing. And I tell the medical students I interact with at school, you need to not be typing and putting all the information into the computer while you're interviewing a patient, because you don't pick up on subtle signs like a hand that's squeezing together with tension and stress as a patient's talking about something. You need to be able to see that patient, watch for these subtle cues that allow you to pick up and help them with what issues are really troubling them, as opposed to just filling in the boxes, like Scott says, checking off and make sure you get reimbursement. And so that's part of the reason the medical profession is broken at this point in time. They are not really connecting adequately with their patients. So we're working on trying to change that. Wish us luck. Wish the medical students luck in hoping that changes, so that they don't have to suffer the burnout. And the way to do that pretty much is by practicing more lifestyle medicine. And I don't know. That's what I've found anyway. All right. Anybody else have any kind of thoughts or questions? Nancy. And I see, Patricia, did you unmute your phone?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, Patricia. Go
I-
ahead first.
Okay. Oh, shall I stop?
No, go
minute?
ahead.
Okay, I went to visit my family in Indiana, and one of my sisters was really ill. She had atherosclerosis, and my mom had it when she was alive. And I was just, and they both smoked, and I'm just wondering, I looked on Google and it said that it can be hereditary. And then I was looking at my numbers, and my numbers all look pretty good. And I just wanted to ask you about that. What do you
You're
think?
asking hereditary for atherosclerosis? Is that what you're?
Yes.
Yeah, so I'll give you two really good examples. So there is a slight hereditary component, but it maybe accounts for 5 to 10% of cases of heart disease or atherosclerosis. And here's a couple really good examples. So one example is the Tarahumara Indians that live in the Copper Canyon in northwest Mexico. So their 90% of their diet is composed of beans, corn, and squash. So they're what they call the three sisters. So they eat predominantly plant-centered diets. They're not completely vegan, but 90% of their calories are whole plant foods. And then they're called the running people. So they run all over. They do like 48-hour runs and probably this kickball game and everything. But anyway, amongst their tribe, the Tarahumara Indians, there's zero heart disease amongst the tribe, so none. But so their direct relatives, their genetic equivalents, their genetic relatives are the Pima Indians that live in New Mexico. And so the Pima Indians in New Mexico, they have some of the highest rates of heart disease in the world. And so they're genetically identical to the Tarahumara, but the Pima Indians in New Mexico, they eat the standard American diet. Even worse, they eat lots of Spam and processed foods and things like that. And they are riddled with heart disease. So it shows you how much of an effect that the lifestyle has. So they're sedentary, they don't run like the running people, the Tarahumara. That being said, the thing that gets lost in that, even though you're thinking, well, only 5 to 10% of cases are genetic, then what's the rest of it? Well, it's lifestyle. But the other thing that gets passed along in families is lifestyle. So recipes that your mom made, your grandma made, your basically the family's lifestyles get passed along through generations. And so that's probably more the reason. Then I just wanted to give you that genetic example, and then to kind of remember that lifestyles are passed along to families as well. So you can, take somebody that has really high risk for heart disease, and if you change their diet and lifestyle, you can improve that significantly.
Okay, thank you. And I was also wondering, I heard someone say, I don't know if I read it or I heard it, that for cholesterol, you should have it below 100, same as your sugar. And I don't. Mine is 160. It's still under 200.
So
What
total
do you-
cholesterol, you ought to be below 150 is what's considered heart attack proof. So based on the Framingham data, the Framingham Heart Study in Framingham, Massachusetts, it's been going on since the 1940s. That's what showed if your total cholesterol is below 150, actually is what we call heart attack proof. And then the LDL, the bad cholesterol, the heart attack proof level for your LDL or your bad cholesterol is under 70. So ideally you have your total below 150 and your LDL below 70. But that's what the Framingham data showed.
Okay. Mine's 79. 160.
Oh, great.
79. Yeah.
That's great. Great
all
numbers.
Right. Thank you. I feel good.
So Patricia, you understand that your genes, you may have a genetic tendency in your family to develop clogging of your arteries, atherosclerosis, the hardening and stiffening of your arteries. You may have that genetic tendency, but the genes that you have need to be turned on
Yeah, right.
for you to develop the disease. If you don't turn the genes on, you don't develop the disease. So
Yeah.
what turns the genes on, do you think?
Bad lifestyle, correct?
Yeah, the choices that you make, the smoking, the lack of exercise, the poor food choices that cause inflammation. What are the poor food choices we talk about in this class? It's animal, meat, dairy, eggs, butter, sour cream, mayonnaise, all the oils that we're so used to eating and that make our mouth water. Those turn the genes on, those foods. So you get the choice, whether you want to risk turning the genes on or whether you want to keep them off because you don't want to suffer the consequences.
Right. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Who else? Joan.
How can you improve your HDL?
That's a tough one. So that HDL is mostly genetic as far as that particular number. Exercise can raise it just a little bit, but pretty much that's the only thing that can do it. But we're not really worrying about HDL quite as much as we used to. There was a really good study a paper that was published in the New England Journal of Medicine back in 2011. And it actually showed that high HDL, there's an association between less heart disease with higher HDL. So we kind of thought, okay, we should have it as high as possible. And then where we got some of the hints on it was when they created a drug that raised HDL, they had to stop the drug trial early because people were dying. It was killing people. And so they knew, okay, so that raising HDL artificially is not a good idea. And then when they got further information from more studies, and they showed that actually HDL can actually be pro-inflammatory, can actually contribute to heart disease. So high HDL can be arthrogenic, which means it can be disease causing to the arteries. And so what's the part of the HDL cholesterol, the good cholesterol that is good about it is something called efflux capacity. So efflux capacity means, think of the HDL particle, it's like Pac-Man. It's going to go grab the bad cholesterol from your artery wall, and it's going to take it back to the liver to be destroyed. So that's the HDL's ability to efflux is what that's called. But what we've learned from the study and the paper that was published in 2011 was that the total HDL number has nothing to do with the efflux capacity of the HDL. And so it doesn't matter what your number is, it just matters how good your efflux capacity is of your HDL, which you don't always necessarily know. And so based on just the number, so the best thing to do is just to get your LDL as low as possible, especially with diet and lifestyle, because just having a good low number, being on a statin, but having a bad lifestyle is not going to protect you as much as getting your cholesterol LDL as low as possible on a good diet. That's what's going to actually reverse, because that's actually treating the cause of the heart disease. And so, and another good example, one more last little bit of information on HDL, is that same tribe of Indians, the Tarahumara that I spoke about earlier. The Tarahumara Indians, their HDL average is only 25, which is really low. You think, oh, that's terrible. 25, most doctors would say, oh gosh, your HDL is low, that's bad. But their total cholesterol is about 125 and their LDL is about 50. So when you have a really low cholesterol because you don't eat, because you eat a plant-based diet, you don't need very much HDL. So your body downregulates the production of HDL when your cholesterol numbers go really, really low. And that happens a lot of times when we put patients on statins. They will get their cholesterol numbers really low on the statins, and their HDL tends to go down as well. And that part of that reason is because the body downregulates the production of the HDL because you don't need to have so much of it around. And again, the total number doesn't matter as much. And so that's another good example of the HDL is low in the tribe of Indians that don't have any heart disease. So we don't really need to be too concerned about the HDL. Is the summary of that everything I just said.
Thank you. Also, have you heard of doctors prescribing, giving an actual prescription for fruits and vegetables so that insurance companies will give the patient money to buy those?
I know there are some programs around the country that do that. I don't know if any here in town, but yeah, I've heard of that prescription for produce, and then you can take it to the farmer's market and get a discount or get some for free.
Okay, thanks.
Pretty cool. Yeah.
Well, the room is open. Whoever has the next question. Adri, it looks like you're unmuted. Are you new? Are you new to class?
No.
Oh, okay. So tell us what's your question or comment.
I have a few questions, but one thing I want to say before I forget is a few days ago, I went with a friend to the Roseburg potluck, the UC Veg place that Scott was talking about. And they said that Dr. Greger was coming again to Roseburg, to the community college there. And I don't recall a date, but it was sometime within the next 6 months. And I went there the last time he came, which was before COVID, and he signed our book, How Not to Die. And it was like people standing room only in the back. It was crazy how many people showed up for that. But yeah, so that's exciting because he's fun to listen to. And anyway, I have some questions. Like on my refrigerator, I have the Daily Dozen and up there, and I try to include a lot of those foods every day. And my question is about whole grain pasta. Like right here, I have some 100% whole grain spaghetti. But when you read the ingredients, it says whole durum wheat flour. And what I remember Scott saying when I talked to him at our wonderful picnic at Alton Baker was that this is still processed food. But so I'm wondering, is there any pasta that's truly whole grain, or is that really, if you want to be all in on the healthiest whole food plant-based diet, that there's just no pasta to be had? Is that right? And I wonder the same thing about whole grain bread. Is there any truly whole food plant-based bread?
Yeah, so yeah, that would be what we consider kind of in the yellow light category, those because they're minimally processed. So there's nothing wrong with whole wheat pasta or whole grain bread. It just depends on what a particular person's goals are. If they still have high blood pressure and they're on medication, if they have diabetes and they're on medications for diabetes, or if they're still overweight, if they have heart disease and they're trying to avoid having a heart bypass or a stent or something, trying to avoid those two foods you just mentioned, whole wheat pasta or whole grain bread might be a good thing to do for a short period of time until you achieve your health goals, reverse those conditions, get off your medications and things. But if you're relatively healthy, you're not on medications, and you're have of normal weight and you feel pretty good, you're probably okay to eat those foods. I eat whole grain bread every so often, and I eat whole wheat pasta fairly regularly. So, but I'm on no medications. I have really low cholesterol, perfect blood pressure. I'm normal weight. So I'm in the situation where I can afford to eat some of those foods. So some of those foods are just a little bit higher in what we call calorie density. And so calories per pound. So the pasta is about 600 calories per pound. Whole wheat bread is about 1,200 calories per pound. So anything that's been kind of processed into flour and made into a product, it's what we would call semi-processed, not ultra processed, but semi-processed. So some of those foods are totally fine. It just depends on what your goals are and what each individual person where they're at.
So there's no green light bread or pasta is what you're saying, if I get you right.
Right. I mean, we would just say, yeah, it's because it's minimally processed. So so what would be a green light food would be if you took, brown rice or oats or barley or farro or one of these ancient grains that's in the bulk bin at Winco, for example, just the big bulk bin of oat groats or whatever, and you cooked that in a pot. That's a green light food because it's a whole grain. It hasn't been processed at all. It's just that whole grain that's been cooked, and then you add vegetables and beans and things like that. So those would be all green light foods. But again, those two foods you just were talking about, those are not unhealthy foods at all, and most people can eat a fair amount of those. Just depends on what your health goals are.
Gotcha. Thank you. And speaking of calorie dense foods, so I understand that oils of all kinds, olive oil, avocado oil, any of them, are to be minimized, and not just because they're high in calories, but because, as you explained to me, they damage the inner layer of the arterial walls, and that can contribute to high blood pressure. So my question is, if we wanted to go all in for a month and just be all whole food, plant-based, no oils, I guess what I'm wanting to know is how much oil can a person have and not have to worry that it's going to damage the arterial walls, or is any of it not okay? And what makes me think of that is watching that Brooke Gardner presentation. I forget what it was, but she said one of her clients who was doing great, and I don't remember if she had reversed lupus or exactly what, but she was on a roll with good health, and she had one bite of something, this client, and then right away, Dr. Gardner could see that the indice got worse, that she was showing signs of worsening after one bite of something. So I'm wondering, is oil the same way, that you can't have any oil at all? Because like yesterday we went to the state fair and we brought all these carrots, celery, red pepper sticks, and hummus, and we were doing great, and we were laughing at the signs for deep fried s'mores and deep fried Kool-Aid even. I'm like, who ever heard of deep fried Kool-Aid? But anyway, we stayed longer than we thought, and we were hungry. So we got some yakisoba noodles, and oh my God, it was like they were swimming in oil. It was so oily. But I just wonder, would the littlest amount of oil be damaging, or do you need to have a good amount before it's a problem?
It's a tough question to answer because we don't really know. So it's always just best, all we can really go off of is, Dr. Dean Ornish's study and Dr. Esselson's work of patients who reversed their heart disease with a whole food plant-based diet. It was oil-free, so SOS-free, salt, oil, sugar, avoided all those things, and that's what showed reversal of heart disease. But a lot of it is, if you look at Mediterranean diet and things like that, where they have a fair amount of olive oil, what the consensus is on things like oil in the literature is that, well, it's more important what you replace the oil with. So if you were you're using coconut oil, or you were using butter, for example, then the olive oil was a better choice. But a better choice than olive oil would be just to use olives, just to eat avocados, because it's not that you can't eat any fat at all. If it's a whole food, it's okay. But even Dr. Esselstyn when he was reversing patients with heart disease, he would say no nuts, no avocados. He would say no to all those even those high fat plant foods, because that's what he was getting results with. So I guess the answer to your question is we don't really know. I don't think we have enough data to say how much is too much. And another thing that take into context is when it was any amount of oil by itself actually caused endothelial dysfunction. It caused inflammation in the arteries and injured the endothelium, which is where the little cells that make the nitric oxide that we want to have as much of available as possible. But the thing is nobody really ever just eats oil plain. And so if you had a little bit of olive oil in a salad dressing and it was with a huge big salad with beans and lots of other whole grains and fruit and vegetables, then it seems to, when you actually test that on the endothelial function, it doesn't injure the endothelium because of all the antioxidants that are in the plants kind of counteract the damage that the oil is doing. But I would just say, if I had a patient that said, well, my cardiologist thinks I need to have a bypass or a stent and I want to avoid that, then I would just go off of Dr. Estelson's data, because that's all we really have is to, we do this, we have actually shown reversal of heart disease. And so that's what I would recommend. But to answer your question, we don't exactly know what amount is too much and some of the ins and outs of what you were asking there.
Thank you. And then I had a question about Dr. Gardner's presentation and how she had so much success with all her patients that did her hypernutrition. But honestly, after watching the whole thing, I still don't know what hypernutrition is, except that she said avoid animal products and oil. But can you tell me in a nutshell what hypernutrition is that she was referring to?
Yeah, so she's just eating, those tons and tons of green smoothies. So that's the hypernutrition, because you're tons of water, tons of green smoothies, and then you're eating a whole food plant-based diet that's SOS free, basically. So no animal products, no processed foods. So you're getting rid of all the foods that cause inflammation, and then you're hyper nourishing yourself with all of those green smoothies and water, and you're knocking down the inflammation. And so that Brooke Goldner, what she was talking about with the markers going back up with just a bite of something that was not on plan, that's just what she means is probably their C-reactive protein, their SED rate, their inflammatory markers in their blood went back up again. And so it's a sign that there's more inflammation. And if they're trying to reverse autoimmune disease, you want to, it's really strict, because you're trying to put people's autoimmune diseases into remission, so it can be really strict even within plant-based eating.
Okay. Thank you. And then I think my last question is, and I also listened to Dr. Lim, is that his last name? His talk. I loved it so much. And when he was asking everyone at the beginning, well, what did you eat for breakfast? And Charlie volunteered that you had arugula and some beans and a banana. And I thought it was so interesting, because I never have vegetables for breakfast. I just don't feel used to that or feel like having vegetables for breakfast. But I wondered, is that healthier than having steel cut oats? Because I think that meets the green light category. And then I add lots of fruit and a tablespoon of flaxseed and some chopped up walnuts. But is it healthier to eat vegetables for breakfast than steel cut oatmeal?
Go ahead, Charlie.
Cut oatmeal is an excellent choice.
What?
And steel cut oatmeal is an excellent choice. Okay. And I would encourage you to stick with that. But for us and our lifestyle, we try to follow what Dr. Greger's guidelines are. He recommends 3 servings of beans, 4 servings of fruit, 5 servings of vegetable, and 3 servings of whole grain. So steel cut oats are a whole grain, but in order to incorporate the legumes and the fruit and the vegetables, we choose to do pretty much half of our amounts for breakfast, which means incorporating all those at the same time. Do you have to do that? No, but that's just a choice that we make. And one of the reasons I bring that up is because I never used to eat vegetables either until I was introduced to at breakfast and introduced at one of the conferences. I think it was in Portland one time, and they served us some cooked greens. I'd never eaten that for breakfast, and I was surprised at how good it was. And so, we have incorporated these things gradually into our diet over time, and we've learned to love them and like the variety. But if you love your steel cut oats, good for you. Keep doing it. don't change. But if you decide to add, we started adding one small leaf of romaine lettuce when we had our first vegetable. And then we added a small leaf of kale after we got used to it. And then we added another leaf of collard green because of the calcium. And that's how we went about it, just gradually adding more and more to our life.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome. Okay, Joan, and then Susan, and Ken had his hand up at one point. So let's go Joan first.
Sorry, it was a mistake.
Okay, Susan.
Sorry,
say,
I'm sorry.
About the,
Yeah,
but-
Gary wanted to know about, we were listening to some kind of health lecture and it mentioned something about the combination of blueberries and bananas. There was
something about the bananas blocking the oxidation or of the blueberries. And so this person recommended not eating those together. So we were just wondering, had you ever heard anything like that?
I've not heard anything like it. It sounds like it's a myth. It sounds like a good story. But I've not seen anything like that. And I eat bananas with blueberries every morning for breakfast, along with maybe 5 or 6 prunes, along with a couple cherry tomatoes, a lot of fruit, maybe 4 servings or 5 servings of fruit in the morning.
Okay.
Wow, nice. Yeah, I love fruit too. Say, I just wanted to say something about that, putting a leaf of green leaves on your cereal, breakfast cereal. Now, I remember I was doing that for a while. This guy had cornflakes, a big bowl of cornflakes, and he put raw spinach leaves on it. And I started trying it. I really liked it. But then I couldn't find any more of these whole grain cornflakes that were sprouted. They stopped selling them. Do you know of any?
Well, I personally don't put it on my cereal. I put soy milk, maybe some walnuts, and my wife puts blueberries. But we put the greens on the side. Along with our serving of beans together, the greens and the beans and some fruits in a bowl, and maybe a little broccoli with it in a bowl by itself, and then the grains in a separate bowl. But as far as the cornflakes, it sounds like a processed food, and healthier choices would be oats or groats or steel cut oats, bulgur or kamut. There's so many whole grains that are really healthy for you.
Well, yeah, that's what we're eating now. But yeah, for a while they were selling sprouted corn flakes that I got kind of addicted to.
It's like Michael Pollan says, if it's made in if it's a plant, eat it. If it's made in a plant, don't.
Yeah.
Ezekiel cereals.
Oh yeah. Gary says, ask about the Ezekiel cereals, that we eat a little bit of that.
I know Ezekiel bread, Gregor would promote when I first started listening to him, that he would say that if you have a ratio of fiber to carbohydrate of 1 to 5, if that ratio is no more than, or 5 to 1 carbohydrate to fiber, that would be a reasonable, acceptable processing of the food. It would be considered a whole grain. So Ezekiel bread has generally, like if it has 3 grams of fiber, it has no more than 15 carbohydrates in a serving. But white bread has like 1 gram of fiber and 20 grams of carbohydrate. That definitely doesn't follow Gregor's rule of what would be considered a whole grain food. So if you're going to be eating some of the yellow light foods, as Scott mentioned, try to make sure that they have that 5 to 1. No no more than that ratio.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, all right. Thank you.
You're
Fun-
welcome.
I keep forgetting that ratio. Thanks.
Well,
And I'll
that's
do
why
that
you
class.
come.
And I'll do the class on food label reading in a few weeks coming up. So we'll go over it again there.
Just wanted to give a quick shout out for green smoothies. Also another great option in the morning if you're trying to get some greens in. You can slip them into the smoothie and mission accomplished for the breakfast.
What else do you put in the smoothie?
For me,
Yeah.
my own personal take, I don't think there's really any. I feel like we're kind of nitpicking here because I think we're all doing pretty well for eating fruits and vegetables in general. So I'm not too worried about it. But I like to combine bananas and blueberries for me. And if I put a decent run in the morning, I'll add some dates to add some calories as well. And then right now the kids really like putting kale in the smoothie. So just ripping up some green kale and tossing it straight in there with some water, and we're good to go.
Okay, thanks. Anybody else?
Well, Charlie, for some reason, I can't raise my hand.
Okay, we hear you. Go ahead, Ken.
So I've been doing this 2 years, and I'm a hopeless label reader. I spend hours in the grocery store, hopefully only once a month. But I've got everything memorized as far as ratios, except I haven't gone back to look at my notes or looked it up or anything. I just wanted to know, since we're talking about ingredients, how many milligrams of iodine should we be trying to get out of seaweed or pills or iodized salt?
150 milligrams a day, approximately. Does it have to be perfect? No. Just don't get 1,000 every day, and don't do 10 every day on the average. Try to get about 150 milligrams a day.
And that is the RDA. So that's Charlie's exactly right.
Is it milligrams or micrograms?
Make me second guess. It's milligrams. I think it's milligrams.
Milligrams, but we will
Let me
check
go
it
look.
out again.
Okay. Charlie basically recommends against multivitamins, but I have some health issues, and doctors that like my healthcare professionals, there's like 6 of them, and they're all over the place on what I should be doing. But the overall trend among my doctors is I should be taking multivitamins. And for my situation, for the problems, the health problems I have, and this multivitamin I have in my hand is 150 mcg. So that's micrograms.
Okay, it's micrograms. It is, I just looked it up. It is micro, it's not milligram. It's 150 micrograms a day. Sorry about that.
Well,
milligrams would be way too much. So 150 micrograms of iodine a day.
Yeah, my point was just where I'm getting it. I didn't mean to correct anybody's verbiage. So that's good news. I hope I'm doing the right things. It's crazy what doctors say. And since we're on this subject, I was really for a long time really strict about plenty of turmeric, and because of its anti-inflammatory effects. And then my gastro doctor said, you better just not be taking turmeric. And I looked that up, and that's kind of a trend among urologists, gastro doctors. And I forgot why, but I think It's something to do with my liver. This guy's my liver doctor. And he says, for my liver, since it's been damaged, I should avoid turmeric. What do you think about that? Because I sure ate a lot of it for 18 months. Then I slowed down because of the gastro doctor.
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't heard anything about any reason to not to use turmeric. So I guess what we keep coming back to you with you, Ken, over the last 2 years is don't get confused because your doctors don't know anything about nutrition. So just get the information from us,
Yeah.
from the sources we trust.
You guys
Nutrition
are
facts and all
wonderful.
that.
You guys are wonderful, and I don't know what any of us would do without you. But if you got a really good doctor, it's hard to ignore what he says. My gastro doctor is amazing.
Dr. Greger has some videos on turmeric or curcumin. If you do a search on that, he does go over how much is too much. As I recall, it's quite a bit. Some people get some stomach upset by taking turmeric. In extreme cases, I just did a search, you could get ulcers, and people who have liver or bile ducts should not take turmeric supplements as they can increase the bile production. So if you have a high amount of bile production, put a quarter of a teaspoon of turmeric a day, as Dr. Greger recommends. I don't think that's going to be enough to make a difference in your life. I wouldn't be taking large amounts, according to this, if you have liver or bile duct problems.
I think that's fantastic advice and information. I tend to be a person that overdoes everything.
Yeah, and that's why your GI specialist probably said, don't take it, because he'd heard about this, or she had, whatever it is, he or she. But a quarter teaspoon is not likely to cause you much of a problem.
Well, I'm going to do that because I bought a year's supply of turmeric just before he told me his opinion.
Okay.
Thanks a lot, guys.
Compromise on your part with him.
Oh, we're full of compromises. We talked about that a lot.
That's great. Okay. Marcia.
Yeah, I heard something today. It's not really for health. Well, I guess it could be. Someone mentioned that they were told to use cod liver oil for their hair.
People are told everything.
Sound like an old wives' tale to me, but there's a lot of things that people have told. Scott, do you know anything about cod liver oil for hair?
No, I don't.
I don't either. I'd like to see the article that documents that is an appropriate thing to do and the reason for it. So I have an open mind. I'll listen.
Well, I looked it up after they told me this. And it was the lady that I drive around once in a while. Someone told her about it. And according to that, it helps with inflammatory and itchy scalp. And if you're losing your hair, it helps. But I've never heard of it before either.
Well, oil is fat. Oil, whether it's motor oil, whether it's olive oil, avocado oil, cod liver oil, it's fat, and it causes inflammation, all the kind of side effects that Scott and I have kind of talked about over the months. And so it is a choice. If someone's worried about losing their hair, if that's the only solution they can come up with, I guess they may suffer some of the other consequences, higher blood pressure, inflammation, some of those other things. So I guess each person gets to choose for themselves what risks they want to take.
Yeah, really. I know I wouldn't do it. Thank you very much.
I wouldn't be inclined to either. Anybody else? Nancy,
So maybe it's putting the cod liver oil on your hair, not in your body. That might help. Who knows?
that's a very good thought. You know, you can put coconut oil on your body too. That might work just as well. Don't put it in your mouth. On your body probably is just fine. This has really been fun. I don't know how we made it another hour and a half. I had so many videos on cancer to share. But we'll do those again some other time, perhaps. And gosh, we loved all your questions. And Scott, we loved all your answers. And Lisa and Kevin and all the rest of the group that's come here. We really appreciate you coming. We're grateful for you. What are we going to do next week, Scott?
The environment.
Wow. Now that's an exciting topic. One that is extremely important because if we don't have a place to live, all the rest of our good intentions may be for nothing. So none of us want to get burned up or blown away in a hurricane or whatever it might be. And we'll talk a little bit about that or a lot about it next week.
All right.
All righty.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Have a
All right.
wonderful week, everybody.
See you next week.